Dean Martin. Hollywood remembers the man, the music, those magical moments.
If you think Hollywood legends live perfect lives, Dean Martin's final years will change everything you believe. To millions, he was the king of cool, the velvet voice, the effortless charm, the man who made fame look easy. Dean Martin seemed untouchable, but behind that easy smile and the glass of whiskey he carried like part of his costume, his world was quietly falling apart. In reality, Dean spent his last years fading into someone even he didn't recognize. Grief crushed him, old memories chased him, and the only person who truly understood his pain was the woman who had loved him long before the spotlight ever did. Jean Martin, his wife of 24 years, never walked away emotionally, not even after the divorce. While the world saw a superstar wrapped in confidence, Jean saw the truth, the emptiness fame left behind, the regrets he carried, and the heartbreaking loss that no amount of applause could ever heal. What started as a glamorous love story slowly turned into a painful tale of loyalty, heartbreak, and a final chapter Hollywood itself could never have written. This is the tragic last act of Dean Martin and the woman who quietly watched the man she loved disappear long before he ever took his final breath. Dean Martin's story didn't start with fame or luxury. It began on the tough, gray streets of Steubenville, Ohio, a steel town sitting beside the Ohio River. Born June 7, 1917 as Dino Paul Cruschetti, he was the child of two Italian immigrants chasing their own chance at the American dream. His father, Gaetano, arrived from Abruzzo in 1913 and opened a tiny barbershop, while his mother, Angela, was a first-generation Italian-American who loved to sing. Their home overflowed with music, jokes, and Italian meals, but money was always tight and English was almost never spoken. So when young Dino walked into school for the first time, he couldn't understand a single word. His heavy accent made him an easy target. Classmates mocked him, mimicked him, and pushed him around. He later joked that he was too smart for school, but the truth was much sadder. He felt alone. By 10th grade, he walked away from the classroom completely, convinced real life would teach him more than any teacher could. And life wasted no time. He took whatever work he could find: steel mill helper, milk delivery boy, gas station worker, even running illegal liquor during Prohibition. He also tried boxing under the name Kid Crochet, a wiry welterweight who fought 12 matches and only won once. "Yeah, I went all but 11, he'd like to say later, hiding old wounds behind humor. Those fights left him with a crooked nose, busted lips, and scarred knuckles. Years later, after Dean became a star, comedian Lou Costello paid to straighten that nose, a small gift that helped polish the suave image the world would fall in love with. During this rough period, Dino shared a cramped New York apartment with his friend Sonny King. They were broke, creative, and desperate. When cash dried dry, they held bare-knuckle fights in their living room and charged $5 admission. On their best nights, they made enough to keep the lights on. On their worst nights, they pretended to get phone calls in diners so they could swipe scraps from untouched plates. But even in those hungry years, something special began to shine through him. Working as a croupier in an illegal casino behind a tobacco shop, he often sang quietly between games to entertain gamblers. One night, bandleader Ernie McKay overheard him and offered him a job singing. Dino said yes, and everything shifted. He started performing as Dino Martini, inspired by Italian tenor Nino Martini, and toured throughout Ohio and Pennsylvania. By 1940, he joined the band of Sammy Watkins, who gave him one piece of advice that changed everything. "You've got the voice, kid, but if you want to make it big, drop the I. Call yourself Dean Martin." It was a tiny adjustment that created a brand new identity, smooth, memorable, and unmistakably American. That name would soon echo across the world, carrying both incredible triumphs and deep heartbreak. Love, marriage, and heartache. By the early 1940s, Dean Martin's career was finally gaining momentum. He had talent, charm, and big dreams, but little stability. That changed in 1941 when he met Elizabeth Ann MacDonald, a warm and down-to-earth young woman from Ohio who loved him long before he became famous. They married that same year, well before he became a household name. Together, they pushed through the early struggles of his career: small clubs, low pay, long nights, and endless uncertainty. While Dean performed in smoke-filled bars, Betty stayed home and built their family. They brought 4 children into the world: Craig in 1931, Claudia in 1944, Gail in 1945, and Dina in 1948. On stage, Dean's easy smile won over audiences everywhere, but at home he was simply a young father trying to survive. He was loving but restless. Fame was knocking, and with it came temptations no marriage could easily handle. As his spotlight grew brighter, their relationship began to fall apart. Betty battled severe alcoholism, disappearing for days or even weeks. Dean, surrounded by glamorous women, flashing lights, and non-stop parties, didn't always stay faithful. Hollywood whispered about his affairs, though the newspapers rarely printed them. Dean's polished public image, the charming man with a drink in his hand and a joke ready for every crowd, kept the rumors quiet. But behind closed doors, the damage at home was already too deep. By 1949, his marriage had fallen apart. Dean filed for divorce and, surprisingly for that time, received full custody of all 4 children. Betty slipped away to San Francisco soon after, choosing a life far from the spotlight that would soon swallow her ex-husband. She spent her rest of the life quietly, almost invisible to the world, and passed away in 1989. Even then, she never fully escaped being linked to Dean's name. Just 1 week after the divorce became official, Dean married again, this time to model and former Orange Bowl queen Jean Beager. Their wedding on September 1st, 1949 was a true Hollywood spectacle, with Jerry Lewis standing proudly as best man. Jean was elegance, loyalty, and calm wrapped into one person. For a while, it felt like Dean had finally found a steady place to land. She supported him through everything: the hit comedy films with Jerry Lewis, his rise as a solo performer, and his entrance into the legendary Rat Pack. Together they welcomed 3 children: Dean Paul in 1951, Ricci in 1953, and Gina in 1956. Under their roof, Jean raised all 7 of Dean's children, both hers and Betty's. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect American family: beautiful, united, and endlessly happy. But fame is never a solid foundation. As Dean's career skyrocketed, he spent more nights away, lived harder, and strayed more often. Jean forgave him again and again, but by the late 1960s, her strength had limits. After 24 years of marriage, they divorced in 1973. Dean married a 3rd time later on, but everyone close to him agreed that Jean had been the true love of his life, and her absence left a wound he never fully healed. The Rat Pack years and the cost of stardom. When Dean Martin walked away from his 10-year comedy partnership with Jerry Lewis in 1956, most people thought he was throwing his career away. Critics said he was just a straight man and wouldn't last without Lewis. But Dean proved them wrong in the boldest way possible. Within 2 years, he reinvented himself, not as someone's sidekick, but as one of the smoothest, most magnetic entertainers in America. His comeback took off in Las Vegas, where he teamed up with Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford. Together, they became the Rat Pack, the slick, fast-talking crew that ruled the Strip. Night after night, they packed the Sands Hotel. Their shows were electric, full of jokes, playful arguments, and a level of confidence that kept crowds hooked. To fans, they were the definition of cool. On stage, Dean looked like the wildest one of them all. Cigarette in one hand, whiskey glass in the other, a crooked smile under a loose tie. But most people didn't know the truth. The whiskey was usually apple juice. The slurred speech, the relaxed posture, it was all part of a persona so convincing that even Sinatra admitted Dean fooled everyone. He was the only one who stayed sober. But that image came with a price. Over time, people stopped seeing Dean as a real man with real struggles. He became a symbol, cool, untouchable, always in control. Yet behind the scenes, he was quiet, private, and often painfully lonely. He didn't chase late-night parties or gamble until sunrise the way Sinatra did. When the spotlight faded each night, he usually went straight home, turned on the TV, and drifted off by himself. Still, no one could deny his natural charm. With roles in Rio Bravo and The Young Lions, he stunned critics who once doubted him. People finally saw his depth, his softness, and the talent he had kept hidden for years. Hollywood kept trying to limit him, treating him as nothing more than a funny singer in a smoky lounge. But Dean refused to stay in that box and pushed right through it. Everything changed again in 1965 with The Dean Martin Show. NBC wanted his effortless magnetism on TV, but Dean had conditions no other entertainer would dare ask for. No rehearsals, just one day of filming a week, and complete ownership of the show after it aired. To everyone's surprise, NBC said yes, and the gamble paid off. The show became a giant success. 264 episodes, more than 40 million viewers every week, and an entire TV empire powered by Dean's relaxed brilliance. He walked on stage each episode looking like he hadn't planned a single thing. That was the trick. It was him, real, loose, and impossible to duplicate. But with each new wave of fame, something inside him grew quieter. The cheers, the jokes, the glamorous friends, they were real, but they didn't last. Dean once said, "If you have luck, you don't have to be smart." But luck fades. And by the late 1970s, his world started to dim. Then came the day everything shattered. On March 21st, 1987, Dean Martin's life broke beyond repair. His son, Dean Paul Martin, a rising actor, musician, and Air National Guard pilot, died when his F-4C Phantom jet crashed into a California mountain in a snowstorm. He was only 35. Dean Paul had been more than a son. He was his father's pride, the golden boy, the one who carried the best of Dean with him. They shared a quiet connection no one else could touch. Dean had survived divorce, fame, rumors, and heartbreak, but losing his son destroyed him in a way nothing else had. Search teams spent 6 days looking for the wreckage. When the news came, Dean closed himself off from the world. Friends said the moment his son died, something in Dean died too. He stopped smiling. He stopped performing. He stopped caring. Comedian Rich Little said it plainly. After that loss, Dean was finished. At the time, Dean was preparing for a major tour with Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. called The Ultimate Event, a big Rat Pack reunion. But after Dean Paul died, he couldn't bring himself to do it. He appeared at the first few shows, looking distant and hollow, then walked away from the tour entirely. Sinatra tried to pull him back, but Dean wouldn't return. Jean, his ex-wife, immediately came to him. Even though they'd been divorced for over 10 years, she was the one person who could still reach him. She stayed close, checking in quietly, often sitting in the same restaurant where Dean ate alone night after night. She didn't push. She simply stayed nearby, gently guarding him as he faded. That year marked the moment the world lost the Dean Martin they loved. Audiences still saw the smooth star who once sang "Everybody loves somebody sometime," but his friends saw a man drowning in grief. When he said, "I'm just waiting to die," he wasn't joking. He was telling the truth. After 1987, Dean slowly slipped out of public life. He rarely appeared on stage, rarely saw friends, and spent most evenings sitting quietly in Beverly Hills restaurants, while Jean continued to sit nearby, watching over him without saying a word. It was as if she knew he needed someone, even if he didn't ask. By 1993, his health collapsed. Years of smoking finally caught up to him. Doctors diagnosed him with lung cancer and urged him to get surgery. He refused. "No," he told his friends softly, "I've had a good life." That short sentence carried the weight of a man who had seen more heartbreak than anyone should endure. In his final months, Dean hardly spoke. He sat quietly in his home, surrounded by old photographs, familiar TV returns, and memories that were slowly slipping away. The same man who once filled smoky nightclubs with laughter now spent his days in dim rooms, waiting for his last chapter to close. On Christmas Day, December 25th, 1995, Dean Martin passed away at 78 from acute respiratory failure caused by emphysema. His death stunned Hollywood. Frank Sinatra, shattered by the news, said Dean wasn't just a friend, he was a brother he chose. And just 3 days after, the city that crowned him a star honored him in a way only legends receive. For 10 silent minutes, the bright lights of the Las Vegas Strip faded to black. The sands, the flamingo, the stardust, all went dark. A city built on glitter and noise stood still for the man who once gave it its charm. Dean was laid to rest at Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. His crypt holds a simple inscription, a line from the song that became his signature: "Everybody loves somebody sometime." Dean, who never remarried, spent the years after his death living quietly, with nothing but her memories, photos of her children, and the man she never stopped loving. When she passed away in 2016, at the age of 89, cancer took her just weeks after the death of their son, Richie, the son who devoted his life to keeping Dean's music alive. The Martin family gave the world joy, timeless music, and a legacy that shaped an era. But behind the spotlight lived a story woven with sorrow, devotion, and the kind of loss that fame could never hide. Dean spent his final days not in the glow of applause, but in the quiet company of a woman who stayed loyal through every storm. Jean watched him fade, knowing that the real decline began the day they lost their son. And eventually, she followed him, bringing an end to a love story that started in sunshine and dimmed into shadow. Their names may shimmer in Hollywood history, but their real story is one of love tested by life and hearts forever marked by what they endured. So here's the question. Do you believe Dean Martin found peace before he left this world, or do you think his final days were spent carrying the weight of all he lost? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories of classic Hollywood, make sure to like and subscribe for more.